Welcome to Psychominds. Here psychology is made simple, clear, and based on science. Perception is a fundamental mental function that allows human beings to interpret, organize, and assign meaning to information received through the senses. Unlike sensation, which refers only to the registration of physical stimuli by sensory organs, perception involves cognitive processing, memory, expectations, and contextual interpretation. In other words, perceiving is not merely seeing or hearing, but understanding what is seen and heard within a personal and cultural system of meanings. From a neuroscientific perspective, perception depends on distributed brain networks involving primary sensory areas, associative regions, and integrative structures such as the parietal and prefrontal cortex. These regions work in coordination to transform raw sensory signals into coherent conscious experiences. Therefore, perception is not passive. It is active, constructive, and continuously shaped by previous experiences. In clinical psychology, understanding perception is essential because many psychopathological conditions involve perceptual distortions. In anxiety disorders, for example, neutral stimuli may be interpreted as threatening. In psychotic disorders, profound alterations in reality perception may occur, including hallucinations. This demonstrates that perception and emotion are deeply interconnected. Furthermore, perception is directly linked to attention and consciousness. Without adequate attention, perception becomes superficial or fragmented. Without intact consciousness, perception may lose logical coherence. Thus, studying perception means understanding one of the central pillars of human subjective experience and mental functioning. Perception is not a perfect mirror of external reality, but rather an internal reconstruction mediated by the brain. Two individuals can observe the same event and interpret it in completely different ways, depending on their emotions, memories, beliefs, and expectations. This reveals that perceived reality is always, to some extent, subjective. Cognitive psychology explains this through the concept of top-down processing, in which prior knowledge influences sensory interpretation. For instance, someone who fears criticism may interpret a neutral glance as disapproval. This perceptual bias significantly affects behavior and mental health. In psychopathology, perceptual distortions are common in anxiety, depression, and psychotic disorders. In depression, the world may be perceived as darker, hopeless, and threatening. In schizophrenia, perception may become so disorganized that individuals experience voices or visions that are not externally present. This shows that perception and reality are not opposing concepts but interdependent. Objective reality exists, but each person experiences it through the perceptual filter of their brain and mind. Understanding this is crucial for an empathetic and scientifically grounded clinical approach. The relationship between perception, attention, and consciousness is inseparable. Perception provides sensory content, attention selects what will be prioritized, and consciousness integrates this information into a coherent experience. Without attention, much of what is perceived does not reach full conscious awareness. Neuroscientific studies show that stimuli can be detected by the senses without becoming consciously experienced. This occurs when attention is directed elsewhere. This explains why we may fail to notice something in plain sight, not due to sensory failure, but due to lack of conscious attention. In clinical conditions such as delirium, both attention and perception are impaired, leading to mental confusion and distorted reality. In anxiety disorders, hyperfocused attention may intensify threatening perceptions, creating a cycle of fear and constant vigilance. Therefore, perception is not an isolated process but part of an integrated system involving body, brain, and mind. Understanding this interaction helps explain phenomena ranging from optical illusions to complex psychopathological experiences. Illusions are misinterpretations of real stimuli. A classic example is mistaking a shadow for a person in the dark. This is not inherently pathological. It reflects the brain's normal attempt to make sense of ambiguous information. Problems arise when such interpretations become rigid and persistent. Hallucinations, on the other hand, are perceptions without an external object, such as hearing voices when no one is speaking. They are common in psychotic disorders but can also occur in sleep deprivation, substance use, or neurological conditions. Hallucinations are not mere imagination. They are genuine perceptual experiences for those who have them. Clinically, distinguishing illusions from hallucinations is crucial for diagnosis. Illusions originate from real stimuli that are misinterpreted, while hallucinations occur without any external stimulus. Both reveal the complex interaction between brain, perception, and consciousness. These phenomena demonstrate that perception is not purely sensory, but deeply shaped by internal processes such as emotion, memory, and expectation. Therefore, assessing perception is a central part of the mental status examination in psychology and psychiatry. In clinical practice, evaluating perception is essential for understanding a patient's psychological suffering. Professionals observe whether hallucinations, illusions, hyperperception, or perceptual blunting are present. This information helps differentiate anxiety disorders, depressive disorders, psychotic disorders, and neurocognitive conditions. In anxiety disorders, perception tends to be hypervigilant with excessive focus on threats. In depression, perception may be impoverished and negatively biased. In schizophrenia, profound alterations in perceptual organization and reality testing may occur. Beyond clinical settings, perception influences learning, decision-making, and social relationships. How we perceive the world shapes how we act within it. In a digitally saturated society filled with visual stimuli, understanding perception is increasingly important for mental health and education. Studying perception is therefore studying human experience itself. It connects brain, mind, and reality, making it a central axis of contemporary scientific psychology. Here on PsychoMinds, we explain psychology with clarity and scientific responsibility. Subscribe and be part of a community focused on learning and understanding the mind.